Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live from Film Fanatic headquarters. It is 9:56 on a Sunday morning. Hope everyone's doing good. Hope everyone is having a fantastic weekend. So tonight, I'm gonna go with some friends and go see the new Predator movie, Badlands. So I'm super excited. I will definitely do a show or review about this movie. This is a movie that, for me, has been one of my most anticipated movies to see. I've heard mostly good things, a couple of mixed things, but mostly good. So one of the things I'm looking forward to, or that I kind of been wanting with this film, because I felt like with the Predator franchise, and I think kind of in general, I think a lot of franchises need to to be successful, need to try to create, a film that, especially when it's in part of a franchise, but just in general, I always think it's so great when a movie can cultivate and be its own thing, like be standalone. Like it can be, if it's part of a franchise, it can be tied to, like, if there's a particular um, mythology or a long-standing story. Like, say there's like numerous films, that maybe go back decades. Even, like, for example, which I don't think they got it right really at all, but like Halloween, for instance, that's a really long, from 78 to, 2023. So, and with that, there's been a lot of super big bumps in the road with only a few films that are really great. But so, and I feel like any kind of movie, when it's tied to a franchise, I think you should really be able to go into a cold, not having to have seen, all the previous movies, and then now in this day and age, there's all these like spin-off movies and TV shows. So it's a tricky balance, and I think a movie should be able to just, go into it. Like I look at an example for, um, like, I'm not into sports movies at all, and there's, I'm not like a big sports guy, and so when you have a movie that can, say, take a subject like that and just make it a really engaging and interesting story, that's really all it takes. I think for a perfect example of kind of what I'm talking about is, there was a movie that came out a few years back called Moneyball with Brad Pitt, and I do like Brad Pitt quite a bit. I think, he's definitely, you know um, a great actor, and I think he really came into his own as an actor as he got older. I remember when I first saw Seven, and then especially when I saw 12 Monkeys by Terry Gilliam, I all of a sudden I totally thought of Brad Pitt, as a different caliber of an actor, like a real actor, not just a pretty guy, a pretty boy, or, you know um, a Hollywood heartthrob. But aside from that kind of thing, actually seeing that this guy is actually a really great actor, really, serious chops as an actor. But what I was saying about a film should be able to take a subject, any kind of subject, any kind of story, what have you, and be able to make it interesting and engaging. And, like, for me, a great example of that is Moneyball, which is just a fantastic movie starring Brad Pitt. And it came out a few years ago. I actually have it on Blu-ray, and I actually love that movie. It's one of my favorite films that he's ever done. And that movie's really unique because, again, it's taking a subject that I have no ties to. I'm not even a fan of sports. I'm not. I never watch sports. I have no interest in sports, and I realize that people find it, fun and escape. It's escapism, while like, movies are for me, and that's totally fine. But I have no interest in sports, and I kind of dislike sports, honestly. But that's just my opinion. But Moneyball is a baseball movie, and it's about the this crazy phase that the Oakland A's went through in California, and Brad Pitt stars in this film, and it's a subject I have no interest in. I have no affinity for, but it's a absolutely fantastic movie, and I love that film. And to me, that's what I feel is a primetime example of that. Like making a movie, regardless if it's its own thing, not tied to a franchise, and then a film that is tied to a franchise. It shouldn't be there shouldn't be a difference. It should be you should be able to go into it and just be, entertained and maybe moved, and maybe, it could be a thought provoking experience. And it should be a fun ride. And I think that is I always think of that movie as being a primetime example, really being a movie that I really love, and it's related to a subject I have no interest in, nor do I care about, and I kind of actually dislike sports. And so I think that is like a good example. And I think a lot of the times, what I see sometimes, in regards to people who review films, people who are, well, the YouTube generation, I see that too, where some people will see that a movie is about, say, some kind of subject, again, that they have no interest in, and they are, just they push back on it. So that prevents them from seeing the movie because of their kind of hangups about that subject. And I realize that's pretty narrow minded, because you're closing yourself off to an experience. Because a good movie is a good movie. A bad movie is a bad movie. Again, it's all subjective, but it's the artist's storytelling. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to with Predator, and we'll see Predator Badlands, because I thought with what they did with Prey was pretty extraordinary. Again, it totally its own thing, and it's exciting. You can go. It's a movie that, and again, there's about 6 or 7 films in the franchise. The first one being my favorite, but Prey is definitely up there. But you could watch Prey and not know anything about the predator creature. You could go into it without having to have seen the original classic with Schwarzenegger. It's just a really great sci-fi horror film. And so, yeah, I don't think it's that complicated. But yet, we live in a day and age where everything is has to be kind of tied together or linked together, and they have to really, well, I think a really good example of that going terribly wrong is with the Star Wars franchise, because I feel like they've reached a point with those films that they've had to, like, they worry about, the filmmakers worry about, and the studios worry about appeasing different demographics, the old school Star Wars fans like myself, and then the new generation, and then they worry about trying to, incorporate some of the previous storylines, pulling from 10 or 12 different movies and trying to, like, appease that too, and trying to connect those dots. And then what ends up happening, especially with the last Star Wars movie, which I thought was a total train wreck, it becomes, inept as a story. There's so much time trying to worry about who is going to see the movie, and then trying to connect the dots, and trying to you know, give everybody that kind of happy ending or that conclusion when it should just be about telling a good story, and it gets so convoluted. And that to me is one of the primetime examples of how not to do that, especially when it comes to a franchise. So we'll see. We'll see how Badlands is. It looks incredibly different from Prey. I don't think it has any relation to it, and I think it feels like, or at least it seems like it is at least, whether the movie is good or not, we'll see. But it feels like at least it's its own. It could be its own thing. It's a separate kind of universe. But so we'll see. And today's show, and I did a big show yesterday on or 2 days ago about my anticipation for Predator Badlands, and then also I did a little kind of talk about all the Predator movies in the franchise, and and all those things. So tomorrow I'll definitely do a review, or I'll talk about Predator Badlands. And so, but today's show is actually going to be another music show, talking about again my favorite band, Autechre. But before I get into that, I want to thank. We had a really fun show last night at Hey Sailor. My friend Leo, who is the kind of the more or less the leader of Osmio, which is the band I've been playing with this past year a lot, which has been such a blast. We're actually going to do some recording today. He put together this really cool show last night at Hey Sailor. There was four bands. We played last. There was a band from Rhode Island called So Over It, really great punk band, and then Mannequin Republic, which was a pretty cool band from Bangor, Portland area, and then Isaac Raven, who is kind of from the Waterville area, and then we played at the end. It was kind of a night of all kind of punk rock, indie rock, heavy kind of stuff. And so it was kind of odd to have us like, in the midst, and it was interesting because like I and we've as a band we've done that a lot before, where we've been on the bill with punk bands and rock bands and other styles of music. Not necessarily. We've done a lot of shows over the years where we are on the bill with bands that are definitely not electronic. So, but a lot of the times when that happens, I kind of feel like, especially if we're playing in the middle, or last, but especially if we're in the middle, if there's a band that plays before us that's like, pretty high energy, and they're really kind of raising the volume and raising the energy. And then the same thing happens with, other bills that we're on, where you kind of want to establish a mood. And if people are kind of feeling it and kind of like maybe, are rocking out, or they feel like they might want to dance and like that kind of thing, you generally, you want to like try to keep that energy up, keep up that momentum, and keep building it. But last night it was like we decided to take a chance and like do something totally different, because all night it was about 3 or 4 hours of pretty high energy rock and pretty loud, and it was really great. And you kind of your natural, or my natural inclination is to like play more of our, or try to play more of our kind of rocking tunes, or a little bit more our higher energy tunes to kind of keep that momentum. But then I thought, well, why don't we do something totally different and just play. Well, one of the things we did was we debuted a brand new tune that I've been working on, this kind of ambient track. And I thought, well, why don't we, I don't know, see how it goes, and we decided to go in a totally different direction and just play like pretty much just atmospheric ambient stuff to close off the night, to kind of maybe give people's, it's always nice to have that ebb and flow sometimes in shows, especially when there's a lot of bands and it's like a lot of heavy, loud music. To just do something different, very different, maybe that kind of brings the energy down and just or changes the room a little bit. So we decided to kind of do that. We had some big time sound problems at first, but I thought once we kind of got through it was pretty fun. So yeah, it was fun, and so we always love playing at Hey Sailor. We'll be back there in a couple of weeks in December actually. So and there'll be a bunch of promotion for that coming up. So anyway, I've been on this massive Autechre kick. I've been literally listening to them every day, which happens a lot anyway. Kind of obsessed with these guys, and I got to see them a week ago, a little over a week ago now. Well, tomorrow will be 2 weeks ago already, but got to see them a second time at the Paradise Rock Club in Boston, and it was just an absolutely phenomenal show. And it's always a new experience. I got to see them before about almost 10 years ago, and it's completely insane on how much music these guys put out. It's like I'm like again a massive fan. I've been a fan of their music for at least 15 years or so. My one of my best friends, Sean Russell, turned me on to them, and if I get into something, a band or music, like if I really like it, I will definitely get to a degree pretty obsessed with it, and I'll check out everything that an artist does. And again, there's a lot of bands out there and artists and directors too that are like highly prolific and have a massive catalog of things. Two directors that I feel are examples of that were a relatively newer director, Jess Franco, Spanish director, exploitation director. Insane the amount of films that he has been involved in and that he's directed. Endless amount of films, and there's still so many I haven't checked out. Paul Naschy, another amazing director, actor, producer, writer. So many films of his, and I have been really the last year or so have bought a lot of his films as well. But there is so many more to get and to discover. And with music, I feel that same thing with Autechre, where as much as I listen to their music, and I have a bunch of their albums on CD, and I've listened to them for years, got a chance to see them twice. It's insane. I literally can't keep up with the amount of music that they put out. Like they are so incredibly prolific that it's borderline insanity, but a good form of insanity. So about 2 years or 2 summers ago, Autechre did a really huge tour of Europe, and they recorded, which they did have done in the past quite a bit, and that's kind of what this show is about today. They About 2 years ago they recorded all of their sets. They were all direct from the board recording, so like high quality studio recording, uh, you know, uh, basically the highest quality that you can get. And so they recorded all of their shows, and there's something like, um, I think they recorded something like 10 shows, maybe more. Full recordings. They're each about a little over an hour. Some are longer than others, but they're at least an hour. And then I think it was last year they released those recordings, basically, well, kind of marketed it as like studio album releases, which is wild. I mean, it's just you get super high end quality recordings. I think Autechre, I mean, is I love their studio stuff, obviously, but I really one thing that's changed for me with them is I really think that they are even better live. I think they have this really cool, unique kind of energy. There's this very improv kind of based theme throughout a lot of their music, and I think that there's a certain kind of rawness that I feel they really explore when they're live, and I listening to all of this live stuff they've been putting out, as much as I love, and it's not knocking in any way, shape, or form their studio albums, because I think those are amazing. But I really feel like there's a big difference. There's a totally different energy, and I'm leaning towards the side of really probably just loving their live um, stuff more than their studio stuff. That's kind of evolved for me over the past couple of years or even less because I've been listening to a lot of their music, but I've been checking out a lot of these live recordings and just amazing, just super killer and super fun and really pushing the envelope sonically, rhythmically, um, melodically, and yeah, and again, it's always a different experience. Like they have been around for so long, and they obviously have very much a style or a footprint that you can, like, I can kind of tell right away it's Autechre. But listening to some of these live recordings, there's times of where it does to a degree feel like it is really new territory. So the recording I've been listening to lately is a recording. Again, it's another big compilation of all of these live shows. AI or AE Autechre live from 2016 to 2018, which was another tour that they had done between those years, 2016 2018, and it's a live compilation. And this one particular recording, there's it's a whole set of all of these live recordings, and there's seven shows. And I've been listening to the first one that is just extraordinary. It's Autechre live in Helsinki, and it's a hour and 2 minutes, full like direct from direct from the board recording of this concert, and it's amazing. Like again, it's one of those things. The quality is so great. I think what Autechre does. I mean, I would imagine if since they are releasing these recordings as essentially studio albums, they probably are getting the recording from the board. Obviously, they record from direct from the board from the sound system, so you don't hear in any of these recordings, like you don't get any bleed through of hearing the audience or anything else. It's just the straight up music, so it's all direct. I do love bootlegs too because I've been listening to a lot of their bootlegs or a lot of people that have been putting out stuff on YouTube that some of the tracks are really really great or the recordings are really great. And there is a certain kind of love about hearing the audience react and hearing the audience there and that energy. And sometimes that can make it even more of a thrilling experience. But with these, it's all direct, so there's no audience to be heard. But and I would imagine for them to I mean usually if you get a recording that's direct from board, obviously it's the quality is really really good generally. So because it's direct, obviously, and so like, but I wonder, they probably did some mixing to the tracks or maybe a mastering of the tracks before releasing them. I would imagine maybe not, maybe because it is raw, but the sound quality is incredible, like unbelievable. I mean, it's as good as any studio recording. And this live recording from Helsinki is just extraordinary, and again, so they have done this a few times, and there's so much music of Autechre that I'm still discovering. And they put out again this box set a few years back, and it was a compilation of this tour or these shows that they played from 2016 to 2018. And then again, the one I was listening to a lot is one that was recorded a couple of years ago. But there's and that box set of albums is all there's actually more in this than this one. But this one is absolutely incredible. This is one of my favorites, Live at Helsinki. Can't recommend it enough. I mean, it's really um it feels like they're really exploring some new ground and territory. It's really dark and very atmospheric. There's a really great kind of range to where they go because there's when I saw them play a couple of weeks ago, it was super high energy, like full throttle, like kind of jungle stuff. Really, really intense, which was just absolutely fantastic. This stuff is way more, I guess, kind of restraint, and dynamically it's very quiet, but there are a few moments of where it gets super intense. And it's really musical. Yeah, it's just fantastic. I mean, total atmosphere. And again, you just never know.
Off.
They have a very distinct style to what they do as a band. But as much as I listen to them, and I'm always so incredibly surprised by where they go or where they don't go. So I can't recommend this box set enough. It's Autechre Live 2016 to 2018, and check it out. It's on Bandcamp, and you can order physical releases. I think this is on. It's available on vinyl. I think it's available on CD. Just absolutely fantastic. Some of the best live stuff I've ever heard of them. And there's like seven more, I believe, in this set. So just fantastic. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.